The Nightingale shift. The first thing Emma noticed every morning was her reflection, not because she was checking her hair or making sure her uniform looked right. Those days were gone. She looked at herself because she needed proof that she was still there. The woman staring back at her in the bathroom mirror looked exhausted. Her eyes were surrounded by dark circles that no amount of sleep could fix. Her skin was once clear, was now covered in angry patches of acne from hours trapped under a tight mask. The elastic had left marks behind her ears. Her cheeks were irritated, her lips were constantly dried and chapped. But the worst part wasn't her face. It was feeling that she was slowly disappearing behind the mask. 2020 had turned the world upside down. Emma was a nurse, and for months she had lived by the same routine. Wake up, work, survive, sleep, and repeat. Mandatory overtime had become normal, a phrase that used to sound impossible now barely registered. Can you stay another 4 hours? Yeah. Can you cover another shift? Yep. Can you help with another floor? Yep. Because there was always someone who needed help. Because there was always more patients. Because there was always another alarm going off. When Emma finally walked through the door of the apartment she shared with her roommates, she felt like she had just returned from another galaxy. Her roommates were living in a completely different version of 2020. Maya, the graphic designer, was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, designing logos in sweatpants. Josh, the teacher, was teaching an online class from his bedroom while trying to convince teenagers that turning their cameras on was not a punishment. And Lily, the social media coordinator for a company, was scheduling posts and tracking trends from the couch. Their worlds had moved inside. Emma's world had become the opposite. She walked into hospitals. She walked toward danger. She walked into the unknown. "You're home," Maya yelled. Emma dropped her bag by the door. Barely. Her roommates laughed, but they knew she wasn't joking. She collapsed onto the couch between them, opened a can of White Claw, and stared at the television. "Are we still watching that tiger documentary?" Emma asked. "Obviously," Lily said. "Everyone is watching it." On the screen were exotic animals, wild personalities, and the strange distraction that had somehow captured the entire country during lockdown. For a few hours, Emma let herself forget. They watched shows everyone talked about in 2020. They laughed at things that weren't funny. They enjoyed the strange comfort of being together, and they partook in the viral TikTok trends. But then the credits rolled. Emma looked at the clock. Her stomach dropped. Already? Another shift, another day, another battle. The next morning, Emma pulled into the hospital parking lot. A small sign near the entrance reminded everyone, "Thank you, frontline workers." She had picked up her free Starbucks on the way into work. A small kindness, a small reminder that people saw them. Free coffee for frontline workers. She held that coffee in her hands like it was something precious. Before entering the building, she filled out the required survey. No cough, no fever, no symptoms, no known exposure. She pressed submit, then the thermometer check. A quick scan, a green light, approved. She entered. Inside the break room, her coworkers sat scattered around the table, 6 feet apart, with only 2 chairs present, so most of them had to stand anyways. Everyone had their coffee in hand. Everyone had their masks nearby. Everyone looked exhausted. Emma sat down and finally took a sip. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then, "Code blue." The sound echoed throughout the hospital. Emma froze. She looked at the clock. She wasn't even on the clock yet. Then again, "Code blue." And again, "Code blue." 3 times. Everything always happens in threes. But this all started before she clocked in. She stared at her coffee, then sighed, "Guess that's my sign." She chugged the rest, hoping that it would give her the energy to get through the day, tied her hair back. She had attached small buttons to her headband to hold the mask straps because her ears couldn't take it anymore. She stood, she swiped her name badge, beep. The reader flashed, and then everything changed. The hospital disappeared. Emma stumbled forward. The air was thick, heavy. Something was wrong. She smelled smoke. She smelled dirt. She smelled something she couldn't identify at first. Then she did. Burned flesh. Her heart stopped. Around her was a battlefield. Cannons thundered in the distance. The ground shook beneath her feet. Men were crying out. Bodies covered the field. The sounds were impossible. The screams, the explosions, the chaos. Emma looked down at herself, still in her scrubs, still wearing her mask, still holding her hospital badge. "This has to be a dream," she whispered. "I'm just clocking into work." A cannon exploded nearby. The blast threw dirt into the air. Something flew past her head. She fell backward. This wasn't a dream. Her entire body shook. Then someone grabbed her hand. A woman stood beside her. She wore a long white dress, a white cap, a red cross. Emma stared. No. Wait, this couldn't be. This woman looked at her calmly. "Come," she said. "We have work to do." Emma's mouth opened. "Florence Nightingale?" The woman looked confused. "You know my name?" Emma stared at the battlefield. The woman? The lamp? The impossible moment. "This is a stress dream," Emma whispered. Florence looked at her. "Perhaps, but the wounded are still waiting. And let's get you a proper set of clothing." Emma ran and followed Florence Nightingale. The first thing Emma noticed was how different medicine was. She knew hospitals, she knew monitors, she knew ventilators, she knew modern medicine, but here there were barely enough supplies. The wounded soldiers lay on wooden beds. The conditions were horrifying. The smell of infection filled the rooms. There were no machines warning nurses of a change in vital signs. No advanced medications, no technology, only people and compassion. Florence moved through the hospital with a calmness Emma had never seen. She carried her lamp through the dark corridors. She checked on soldiers. She cleaned wounds. She listened. She cared. Emma watched in amazement. "You're exhausted," Emma said one night. Florence smiled. "So are you." Emma looked surprised. "How do you know?" Florence looked at her mask. "Because I have seen the faces of nurses who carry more than they should." The words hit harder than any cannon. Emma looked away. Florence continued. "People think nursing is simply treating illness. It is not. It is showing up when others cannot." Emma swallowed. She knew that feeling. She had lived it. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time worked differently here. Emma helped wherever she could. She cleaned wounds, comforted soldiers, organized supplies. She watched Florence fight for cleanliness, for hand washing, for better conditions, for the simple belief that saving lives required more than just treating injuries. It required preventing suffering. Emma was amazed. The things Florence fought for were things Emma took for granted. Clean hands, sanitation, basic safety, endless supplies. Florence had to fight to convince people. Emma thought about her own hospital, the signs, the reminders, the protocols, the sanitizer stations. She realized she was standing in the future that Florence had helped create. One night, Emma walked beside Florence through rows of wounded soldiers. The battlefield outside was quiet. The only light came from their oil lamps. Florence looked at her. "Why do you continue?" Emma looked confused. "Why do I continue what?" "When you are tired." Emma thought about 2020, the long shifts, the masks, the fear, the exhaustion. Then she answered, "Because someone has to." Florence smiled. That is the heart of nursing. The next night, something strange happened. Emma noticed Florence's lamp flickering. "Your lamp?" Florence looked down. The oil was almost gone. They continued walking. The light grew smaller, until finally darkness. Emma felt the world shift. The battlefield disappeared. The smell of smoke vanished. The screams faded. And suddenly, beep, she was back, standing at the badge reader. Her hand was still pressed against it. "Girl, are you okay?" Emma turned. Her coworker Sarah stared at her. "You know you can walk in, right?" Emma blinked. "You've been standing there for like 30 seconds. Emma looked around. The hospital, the lights, the sounds, the break room. Reality is sinking in. "You're super tired today or something." Emma looked down at her badge, then at her hands. She smiled. Just went from one battlefield to another. Sarah laughed. What? Emma pulled up her mask. I guess I'm just doing my part. From that day forward, Emma changed, not because she became less tired, not because the work became easier, but because she remembered. She remembered the woman with the lamp. She remembered the battlefield. She remembered how far healthcare had come. And she remembered that progress started with someone caring enough to fight for change. Years later, Emma became known at her hospital as the hand-washing champion. She reminded new nurses why simple things mattered, why small actions saved lives, why every patient deserved care. And when someone asked her why she cared so much about something as simple as washing hands, Emma would smile, because she had seen where it began, with a woman carrying a lamp through the darkness, a nurse who changed the world, a nurse named Florence Nightingale. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Nightingale Shift. Please leave your comments below and feel welcome to like and subscribe. Unnamed Nurse clocking out.